Good morning, all. In this session, we discuss semiconductor laser. After the invention of semiconductor laser in 1961, laser become at common use. The semiconductor laser, which is also known as junction laser or diode laser, is today one of the most important types of laser with its very important application in fiber optic communications. These lasers use semiconductor as the lasing medium and are characterized by specific advantages such as the capability of direct modulation into the gigahertz region, small size and low cost, the capability of monolithic integration with electronic circuitry, direct pumping with conventional electronic circuitry, and compatibility with optical fibers. And the semiconductors lasers are of two types, except the construction principle and working are same for both. The classification are homojunction semiconductor laser and heterojunction semiconductor laser. In conventional laser are generated due to the transition of electron from higher to lower energy levels. But in the case of semiconductor laser, the transition takes place from conduction band to the valence band. The basic mechanism responsible for light emission from a semiconductor diode, semiconductor laser, is the recombination of electrons and holes at the p-n junction when current is passed through the diode. So it is the physics behind laser diode. It is the basic mechanism. That is the recombination of electron and holes at p-n junction when current is passed through the diode. The basic mechanism is the light emission from a semiconductor is the recombination of electron and holes at a p-n junction when current is passed. Just like in other laser system, there can be three interaction processes. First is the excitation, or the here the excitation means generation of electron hole pair. An electron in the valence band can absorb the incident radiation and be excited to the conduction band, leading to the generation of electron hole pair. Next is the spontaneous transition. An electron can make a spontaneous transition in which it combines with a hole. It make a transition from conduction to valence band, and in the process it emits radiation. And the third is stimulated emission. A stimulated emission may occur in which the incident radiation stimulates an electron in the conduction band. It is important, an electron in the conduction band to make a transition to the valence band, and in the process, it emits radiation. In the spontaneous transition, what happens? An electron make a spontaneous transition in which it combine with a hole. Okay, it make a transition from the conduction band to the valence band. Okay, and in this stimulated emission, what happens? In the stimulated emission, an incident radiation stimulates an electron in the conduction band, or the electron in the conduction band absorbs another radiation and it go to the valence band. Okay, if now by some mechanism a large density of electron is created in the bottom of the conduction band, simultaneously in the same region of space a large density of hole is created at the top of the valence band, then an optical beam with frequency later than with a frequency that is slightly greater than Eg divided by h cross, where Eg is the band gap energy, will cause larger number of stimulated emission as compared to the absorption. Thus, it can be amplified. In order to convert the amplifying medium into laser, one must provide optical feedback, which is usually done by cleaving or polishing the ends of PN junction diode at the right angles to the junction. In the case of other lasers, we use partially reflective mirrors and fully reflective mirrors. And here, in the case of semiconductor laser diodes, we use polishing the ends or polishing the some part of the crystal structure. Okay, so in order to amplify medium into laser, we must provide optical feedback, which is usually done by cleaving or polishing the ends of PN junction diode at right angle to the junction. Thus, when a current is passed through the junction under forward bias, the injected electron and holes will increase the density of electron in the conduction band and holes in the valence band. At some value of current, the stimulated emission rate will exceed the absorption rate and amplification will begin. As the current further increase some threshold value of current, the amplification will overcome the losses in the cavity and the laser will begin to emit coherent radiation. And the early semiconductor laser were based on PN junction formed on the same material by proper doping, and this is referred as homojunction lasers. It is a simple semiconductor laser. But there is some disadvantages. Due to the absence of any potential barrier for the confinement of carriers or abrupt refractive index discontinuities for the confinement of optical radiation, these laser structure required large threshold current density. The homojunction laser requires large threshold current density. The absence of carrier confinement result in a diffusion of the carriers near the PN junction plane, due to which a significant optical gain was available only over a very small region around the junction. The absence of any strong optical confinement result in a optical energy penetrating beyond the gain region where it was absorbed. Thus, the larger current densities were required for the laser operation. To overcome this difficulty, we use heterojunction lasers. In that case, a significant reduction in the threshold current density was achieved. The figures shows the left hand side shows homojunction, sorry, it is not homojunction, it is heterojunctions and single and double heterojunction. Here look at the center. The homojunction laser is given in the first slide. This is the homojunction, only a P and N. Okay, and in the middle it is the PN junction. This is heterojunction laser and this is a single heterojunction. This is double heterojunction. And this is the working of diode, laser diode. This is the true electrodes. It is a PN junction. When we give a forward bias current, then recombination occurs. Then a photon will release. Then as we cleaved or polished the surface, then the photon move back and forth between these two. Then further stimulation occurs. Then a high intense beam is produced through here. Look at one more. This is the crystal and the upper, it is front polished surface and the backward is rear polished and top P-type, bottom N-type. Then when a potential is given, recombinations occur, then photon releases to move back and forth between the polished surfaces and it amplifies. Then further stimulation process occurs, then a laser is produced. Okay. The heterojunction is a junction formed between two dissimilar semiconductors. The present day lasers are based on double heterojunction, in which a thin active layer of semiconductor with a narrow band gap is sandwiched between two larger band gap semiconductor as shown in figure. In this configuration region, in which the electrons are holes combine is bound on either side by potential barriers, then they are confined to a thin active region. Fortunately, the refractive index of the semiconductor decreases with increasing the band gap. Thus, the diffractive index of the central active layer is higher than two surrounding regions. Then there must be a chance for total internal reflection. Such refractive index profile can confine the emitted optical radiation to the active region by the mechanism of waveguidance, which occurs due to the total internal reflection taking place at the boundaries. In addition, since the layers surrounding the active central region have larger band gap, the optical field which penetrate into the surrounding region is also not absorbed. In the laser structure discussed above carries and the optical waves are confined only along one direction. One can provide an additional confinement in the lateral directions also. In such laser, the active region will have an approximately rectangular cross section and will surrounded by higher band gap material on all sides. Such a laser is referred as a buried heterostructure laser, can operate with threshold current which is much smaller than the others. This is the details about semiconductor laser. And most of the semiconductor laser operate either in 0.8 to 0.9 micrometer or in the 1 to 0.7 micrometer spectral regions. Since the wavelength of the emission is determined by band gap, different semiconductor materials are used for different spectral regions. The laser operating in the 0.8 to 0.9 micrometer spectral region are based on gallium arsenide. By replacing a fraction of gallium atom by aluminum, the band gap can be increased. Thus, one can form heterojunctions by proper combination of gallium aluminum arsenide and gallium arsenide, which can provide both carrier confinement and optical wave guidance. For example, the band gap of gallium arsenide is 1.424 electron volt and that of gallium 0.7, aluminum 0.3, arsenide is 1.798. Okay, it is greater than that of gallium arsenide. The corresponding refractive index change is 0.19. Thus, surrounding Ga gallium arsenide layer on either side with 0.7 Al with gallium 0.7, aluminum 0.3 arsenide, one can achieve confinement of both carriers and light waves. For lasers operating in 1 to 1.7 micrometer band, the semiconductor material is indium phosphorus with gallium and arsenic used to replace fraction of indium and phosphorus respectively. The above wavelength region is extremely important in connection with the fiber optic communication since silica based optical fiber exhibits low loss and very high bandwidth around 1.55 micrometers. Okay, this is the end of semiconductor laser. Thank you.